Good morning, students. Today we will have a poem, and the title of the poem is Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Okay, it is a very interesting poem, and you will get a deeper sense of life in it. Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. About the poet, his writings are simple, wherein lies their beauty. Originally written in Spanish, this poem is written in Spanish. The essence of this poem is based on introspection and retrospection. The poet feels that some soul searching is needed for us to be at peace with ourselves and others. Pablo Neruda, 1904, was born on 1904, died at 1973, was the pen name and later legal name. Famous Chilean poet, diplomat, politician. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. He wrote in green ink, which was his personal symbol for desire and hope. That is his peculiarity. He writes his poem in green ink. Yeah, here is the poem. Poem number 3 from your prose text, Keeping Quiet. Here again they have given a small introduction about the poet. Pablo Neruda was born in 1904, died 1973. Is the pen name of Neftali Ricardo Reis Basalto, that is his real name, who was born in the town of Parral in Chile. Neruda's poems are full of easily understood images which make them to no less beautiful. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. In this poem, Neruda talks about the necessity of quiet introspection. What do you mean by introspection? Viewing yourself, the inside out, the introspection, and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. So the poem is all about creating an introspection and the feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. That is the theme of the poem. And before you read, what does the title of the poem suggest to you? What do you think the poem is about? Keeping quiet. The very two words telling us something that we have to be calm, quiet, still, not making a noise or a disturbance, right? So here the poet is telling that he would be counting up to 12. So let me recite. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let us not speak any language. Let us stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. So this is what is the first part of the poem. So here the poet is asking us to count, and he will be counting up to 12. So what do you mean by this 12? This 12 can be the 12 digit in a clock, like, okay, 9, 3, like that 12 digits are there of a clock, or 12 months of a year. It can be 12 months, 12 months of a year. He is telling, the poet is telling us that he will be counting up to 12 and we all will have to keep quiet, keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let us not speak in any language. That's very important, that we should not speak in any language. It can be Kannada, it can be Marathi, it can be English, it can be Hindi or Spanish or any language across the globe. People should not speak any language. And let us stop for 1 second. at least for 1 second people should be not speaking in any of the languages. Do you think it is possible? No. It is an exaggerating or eccentric idea from the side of the poet, right? It is not possible. You cannot stop everybody speaking a language. No, it's not possible. So let us, but it is the wish of the poet that nobody in this world should speak any language. Okay, and let us stop for 1 second at least and not move our arms so much. So what do you mean by arms here? It is actually a pun. One meaning of arms is weapon. Another means your arm, your hand, your arm. So it is called in English pun, double meaning. What is it called in English? Pun. So let us not move our arms, no, our weapons, one meaning. Another meaning is your own hands, okay? Not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment. What do you mean by exotic? All of you write down. Exotic means strange and unusual. Strange and unusual. It would be an exotic moment without a rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. When the poet is advocating silence, what will be happening, you know? Everywhere it would be silent. There won't be any movement. Okay? And that will become a exotic moment. Without a rush, without engine. All vehicles in the world will stop running or working or operating. It would all be together. Everywhere it should be done. And it in a sudden strangeness, and it creates a sudden strangeness. When all activities are stopped or suspended for 1 second, that would be the most strange and unusual moment. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. What do you mean by cold sea? Those fishermen catching fish from the sea. Okay, it can be in the sense polar region also, cold region. Okay, it can be interpreted as polar region, not only specified for one sea but polar region. It can be representing, symbolizing. It is a symbol then. So this expression can be a symbol in English. Symbolically it is used as cold sea, or you can just imagine a cold sea. So that way it is called imagery. What is the imagery used in the poem? Okay, imagery. So imagery. Why? Imagery. So clear? So this is an example for this cold sea is an example for symbol used in the poem, meant for polar region. Okay, in a broader way, or in a narrow way we can say cold sea. That is an imagery. What is imagery? You create an image in your mind. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. You know what whale is? The largest fish, okay? And fishermen will not be harming the whales when they stop their activity, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands, and the person who are gathering salt from the seashore will not be hurting his hands. Okay, now next, those who prepare green wars. There are people who are engaged in wars. Green war, destroying the what you call nature. Green wars, war with gas. Those who are making war with gas. Okay, or war with fire. Victory with no survivors. Okay, when all the people are engaging in war, what will be the condition? There won't be anybody to enjoy the victory or the success. Or if success is there, if there is no survivor, what is the use? So would put on clean clothes. So poet requests all those people who are making war or waging war or creating war to put on clean clothes. Okay, clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Okay, and what they should do, they should walk about with their brothers and in the shade doing nothing. So inactivity. So poet is advocating everybody to keep silence or to suspend all the activities that they are engaged in and to create a sudden strange exotic moment. Okay, now what I want should not be confused with the total inactivity. At the same time, the poet is telling us that this inactivity should not be confused. What I want should not be confused with the total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want not trek with the death. This inactivity is nothing to do with this inactivity the poet is talking about is nothing to do with death. Death means there is no movement, okay, but there is no life. But here life is there, but only people should become inactive for 1 second or up to 12 till the poet counts up to 12. I want no trek with no deal with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So poet is telling you should not be narrow-minded, and we should stop raging war, and if you don't do anything there would be a sadness, okay, of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. So the intention of the poet is to make people realize their mistake and to introspect what they are doing and should come to the righteousness. So finally the poet again advocating, giving an example, perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So he is giving an example from the earth, how the earth is keeping the silence. So you can see sometimes the earth is it seems like dead. For example, everywhere you can see trees shedding their leaves, okay, and you will feel there is no life on the tree, but when the rain comes all the trees will put on new leaves, okay. The same way you may feel that people are inactive, but they are all making an introspection and they will succeed later. So like that, perhaps the earth can teach us as and when everything seems dead. Everywhere you can see dried land, but when the rain comes you can see grasses growing and later proves to be alive. This is what's a beautiful example that the poet created here. Now I will count up to 12. Now the poet is telling, now I will count up to 12 and you be keeping quiet, and he will be going. These are the contrast. Now let us see the first 2 lines and the last 2 lines. In the first 2 lines the poet said, now we will see, here you can say, now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still, means including point will be keeping the silence, whereas the last 2 lines you can say, now I will count, that means poet will count up to 12 and you means we the listeners, you, that means we keep quiet, and I means poet will be going out. So children, now we have a few questions here. I hope I could do justice with my explanation. What will counting up to 12 and keeping still help us achieve? It will help us to introspect ourselves or to think better. Do you think the poet advocates total inactivity and death? No, it is not total inactivity and nothing to do with the death, but the poet wanted everybody to introspect. What is the sadness that poet refers to in the poem? Here the sadness stands for reckless activities. of the human beings, mindless activities of the human beings, that they are committing mistakes and they are making their own death. So the sadness stands for reckless activities of human, that the poet refers to. Okay, what symbol from nature does the poet invoke to say that there can be life after life under apparent stillness? So the poet said that sometimes we see that everywhere there is no life, the nature is dead, but when the rain comes, things comes to life again. So children, this is all about the poem. I hope I could do some help. And now let us discuss the poetic device used in the poem, or figure of speech used in the poem. First of all, these two contrasting things are there. For example, now we will count up to 12. Okay, the poet is telling he will be counting up to 12. Okay, counting requires sound. Okay, activities require counting in order to count, whereas he says you will keep silence still. So it is in contrast. So there is a contrast. What is the contrast? One is counting, okay, the other one is keeping silence. So in English we call it as antithesis. All of you write down the spelling: antithesis, antithesis. So what is antithesis? Opposite ideas, contrasting effects. So what is the contrasting effect here? The poet is telling he will be counting up to 12. So it needs activity or action or sound, whereas the second one will keep still. So this is one of the example of antithesis. One more antithesis is there in the poem. Let us see the last two lines. Not last two lines. Yeah, here it is. Okay, everything seems dead. So poet says in the nature things will be dead, means there is no life. But in the next line he says everything is alive. So again here is a contrast. So again what is used here? Antithesis. ANTITHESIS. So antithesis is used. That is a poetic device. Now let us come to another poetic device used in the poem. So in lower classes you may have come across of alliteration. Let me write alliteration: ALLITERATION. You have to write in your notebook and learn. Okay, alliteration spelling: ALLITERATION, alliteration. So what is alliteration here? Repetition of consonant sound. You know what consonants are? Other than A, E, I, O, U are called vowels. Other than vowels, which are the other letters available in English alphabet, is called consonant. So repetition of consonant sounds is called alliteration. For example, we, W, will, we, will. Okay, so this repetition of consonant sound is called alliteration. Can you find any other example of alliteration here? You just go through like this. Any such consonants are repeated, okay, then it is called alliteration. I think here is another alliteration: clean cloth. The letter C is repeated: clean clothes. War with, W, again war. War with gas, war with, WW. So that is alliteration. Okay, any other? Okay, it's okay. So what is alliteration? Repeat of consonant sounds. Now one more poetic device is repetition. Same word, when it is repeated, is called repetition. For example, let us come to the third stanza. Yeah, here the word without, two times repeated. So in English we call it as repetition. REPETITION. P E T I T I O N. Repetition. 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 Okay. So without rush, without engine. So without is repeated. So can you find out one more repetition? Yeah, the next stanza. Wars with the gas, war with the fire. So here war and war repeated. So it is called again repetition. So is it clear? So when you learn a poem, you have to learn the poem and the theme and some of the poetic devices used, because these are the area an examiner can ask questions. Okay. So I hope all of you understood well. So let us make a recap of what you have already learned from this poem. The theme is quiet introspection, okay, and mutual understanding among human beings. Actually, people are living in a restless way, creating trouble to others, waging war with others. So poet is telling we have to keep ourselves quiet, without any language, without any activity. For example, fishermen in the cold sea will not be harming the whales, and the people who are gathering salt will not be would not look at his hurt hands, and those who are waging wars like a green war, war with gas, okay, war with fire, and there would be victory but no survivors. And what is the use of that? So he is advocating people to wear clean clothes, that means, okay, clean clothes, and walk around with their brothers. Good relationship should be maintained. But at the same time, the poet is telling it is not total inactivity, but during that time period we have to introspect ourselves and to avoid our mistakes. Otherwise there will be a sadness. Sadness means reckless activity that will lead to death really. And one more example that poet recalls is that earth sometimes looks very dry and dead, but when rain comes it proves that it is alive. And finally, after teaching this idea to the reader, the poet is telling, then I will count up to 12 and you, means reader, you, the public, should keep quiet. Okay, that is the end. Thank you children, thank you for listening. Goodbye.